The pros fly. Fly the friendly skies of United. In pro football, the factor of time will only allow a man to react to the swirls of action around him. In the locker room before a game, however, live those swirls 1,000 times in the loneliness of his own thoughts.
4-3 set. It's a pass. It's a pass.
For the Denver Broncos in 1969, time was both a trusted ally and relentless foe. But opening day against the Boston Patriots was a time for winning. The Broncos were able to recover from the disappointment of having a touchdown called back to pull a surprise move that would turn a close game into a rout. But not every day would go this well for the Broncos. Quarterback Steve Tenzie was afforded those extra precious seconds of safety that allowed him to complete almost every pass he threw. The Broncos had possession of the ball 6 times in the first half, and Tenzie directed them to touchdowns on 4 of those occasions. Defensively, the Broncos reduced the Patriot attack to confusion and despair. Only a last-minute touchdown prevented a complete whitewash. Bronco receiver Al Denson caught 2 passes for touchdowns that complemented running back Floyd Little's 105 yards rushing. The tandem Denver attack was enjoying one of its finest hours as Floyd and the Broncos captured the initial prize of the season. The victory over the Patriots was of special significance as it showcased the promising future of young Mike Hafner, number 84. Mike somehow personifies the Broncos with his tremendous enthusiasm and desire to do all he can as soon as he can. Like his teammates, he never gave up on a pass that might be caught or a game that might be won. Mike was a big part of Denver's offensive long suit, its receivers. He was also part of the injury list that plagued the receiver corps all year, as he, Billy Van Heusen, Tom Beer, and Al Denson were all hurt at one time or another. Though stricken with injuries, the Broncos were able to produce yet another newcomer who filled in most favorably. He is John Embry, number 89. John has the ability to split a defense wide open and then run right past it. Possessing both long legs and arms, John could clutch passes out of the sky or off the ground and could sometimes outrace whole secondaries. Any receiver, however, running a long pass pattern requires not only speed, but also deception. The man defending must believe without a doubt that going deep is the last thing you want to do. Al Denson has the ability to lull a defender into that kind of thinking, then take a quick move inside to leave him behind grasping at shadows. Long touchdowns are the result of a perfectly executed plan. Plans that are born and matured far from the dazzled defenders.
A little more pressure, defense, so we can get a little better shot out of it. A little more pressure.
For head coach Lou Saban, 1969 was an important year, as no longer would there be drastic lineup changes. Most of the people it takes to build a competitive team are already in a Denver uniform. The challenge now is to build on what is already here.
Come on, Water, you ought to know how to run that pattern by this time. Get inside where you belong. Look. Wandy, don't let them dominate you. Got the idea? That's what worries me all the time about you. A lot of these guys that push you around, I don't want that to happen. You've got to be strong. You take the forward step. Got the idea? You think all the time when you're down in here. You know where you got to be all the time.
145, 145, set, get. Take it up, George. That's it.
That's good enough. Let's go. Goal line offense, let's go.
Goal line offenses and stacked defenses. Key phrases in a general effort to prepare for a victory on Sunday. Practice is officially over, but for Dave Costa, Jerry Inman, Pete Duranko, and Rich Jackson, it isn't over yet, because Sunday means the New York Jets. And now it's time to talk in specifics.
There's one good thing about playing Namath. You know, he's not the greatest of scramblers with those knees, so I think we can maybe gamble a little more on insides and outsides like that.
You know, Dale, we're going to have to put a tremendous amount of pressure on Namath. You know, you have that quick release, and we're going to have to keep our hands up to try to blind him and keep him from picking up the coverage when he's backpedaling. You know, he can backpedal as fast as you can run forward. I think it's going to be left up to us Sunday. We're just going to have to get the job done.
Yeah, if we can get him back up into the pocket, maybe we can get him from the inside then, so he can't drop back as far.
You can't give that guy enough credit, though, you know, playing with two bad knees. And he's the best in the business. He can do everything. You know, I think the biggest difference between him now and a couple of years ago, he's got better play selection. He knows what it's all about. He's reading those defenses, so this makes it tough. But I've never seen a quarterback yet that can throw on his back.
Joe was seeing more than a little red in the second quarter, and he wasn't very happy about it. But the Broncos weren't always this successful, as in the first quarter, Namath took advantage of their fierce rush by throwing screen passes around it, and New York gained a 13-0 lead. But in the second stanza, Denver lined the Jets up against their own wall. And Floyd Little pulled the trigger on them to break the game wide open. Floyd's touchdown lifted the whole team. The once vulnerable Bronco defense suddenly blended desire with effect. What had been in the hands of the Jets in the first quarter passed to the Broncos in the second. Denver fans were eager and ready for this defensive reversal, but nobody was ready for what quarterback Pete Lisk and receiver Mike Hafner had in mind. The Broncos rode the magic carpet of Mike's catch into the locker room and a paper-thin lead at halftime. The offense had proved that it could succeed, but needed the ball again to widen the margin. Twice in the third quarter, the defense came up with the ball, and although substantial gains were recorded, the Broncos couldn't score. Not until the fourth quarter when Pete List threw a touchdown pass to Al Denson. The talented Jets were denied any opportunity to score until the waning moments of the game. Emerson Boozer poured in from close range, but the Jets needed a two-point conversion to tie. It was a time to wait and hope. Three years in a row, Denver had beaten New York, but it would also be 3 weeks in a row before Denver won again. In the 6th week of the season, the Broncos went on the road to face the precocious Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals had already defeated both the San Diego Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs. A Bronco victory over the Bengals would take an outstanding offensive and defensive effort. Of course, the Broncos made the trip by United Airlines, the airline the pros fly. After those 3 consecutive losses, the Broncos faced the Bengals at Nippert Stadium in Cincinnati. Any doubt concerning the outcome of the game was quickly dispelled by quarterback Steve Tenzi. With his receivers limber and healthy, his defense determined and quick, he staked the Broncos to an early lead. To be sure, it was a time for the velvet grace of an Al Denson touchdown. But even more than that, it was a time for the gripping excitement of a Floyd Little run. With guards Bob Young and George Gedeke separating defenders from their senses, Floyd skimmed over 160 yards. The best day in pro football during 1969. In the second half, the Bengals mounted a furious rally that temporarily stunned the high-flying Broncos. Faced with a fresh challenge, they settled the issue decisively. Six times in the final quarter, the defense crushed the Bengal attack, and reduced the threat to dust and preserved the 30-23 victory. The performance of the defensive line against Cincinnati was impressive, but hardly unique. Led by all-league defensive end Rich Jackson, number 87, and captain Dave Costa, the Bronco front four often gave opposing quarterbacks and runners the taste of a high-country stampede. With Pete Duranko, Jerry Inman, and the rapidly developing Paul Smith, the defensive line is fast becoming as good as any in football. Sometimes they excelled as individuals, but more often as a group. And no matter what the circumstances, they always used their heads. At home against the San Diego Chargers, the defense made Bronco football history as it calmly and without fanfare fashioned Denver's first shutout ever. With Steve Tenzie in control, the offense was simple and direct in posting the 2 touchdowns to win the game. As prophetic as this victory was in Bronco football development, it was also star-crossed. This would be Floyd Little's last touchdown for 5 weeks. At game's end, there was a sprained knee on the Denver bench wearing number 44. During Floyd's absence, the Broncos often played well enough to win, especially at Kansas City. But just when they had an opponent corralled, he would escape and race away with victory. For all concerned, it was a sad and difficult time, but how can you replace the irreplaceable? Floyd Little had vowed before the season that he would gain over 1,000 yards. He played only half the season, but still gained over 700 yards. But beyond statistics and averages, Floyd exemplifies the intangible feeling that any play can go for a touchdown at any time. Even though the Broncos managed only a tie with Houston during his absence, many of the younger players developed far beyond expectations. The most notable example was Billy Thompson, a rookie who led the league in both kickoff and punt returns, a feat never before achieved by anyone. In addition to his often spectacular efforts when he had the ball, were those when he did not. For Bill Thompson was known to play a little defense. An opposing quarterback will always look at a rookie playing his position with a confident smile. But Bill gave up only 2 touchdown passes all year. Quite a feat for any cornerback. After their narrow and disappointing loss at Miami, the Broncos returned home for the season finale with Cincinnati. The Broncos were looking for more offensive consistency to finish the season a winner. The most consistent thing early in the game was Horst Muhlmann's foot, which gave the Bengals a 9-0 lead. Faced with the prospect of coming from behind, the Broncos and quarterback Pete Lisk used a varied offense that produced 2 touchdowns, enabling Denver to jump into the lead. Although held to 1 first down rushing for the entire game, the Bengals used a long pass to regain the lead at 16-14. The Broncos had accomplished much during the course of the season, and a loss in this game would be a major disappointment. The Bengal touchdown proved to be Cincinnati's undoing. Determined and relentless, the defense threw up a stone wall and then hit the Bengals over the head with it. The Broncos forced the errors that seemed to freeze the Bengals in the warm Denver sun. The fourth quarter came to life, and so did the Denver offense. Runners like Fran Lynch hammered out sizable gains. Field goal kicker Bobby Howfield sensed victory also, and he boomed one 51 yards that cleared the bar by another 10. Quarterback Pete Lisk, who completed 13 out of 17 passes, was calling a knowledgeable game that gave Frank Quayle the opportunity to race 71 yards with a well-placed sideline pass. Another pass to John Embry, and the game was secure. Denver fans were both thrilled and disappointed during the year, but on this day they saw a Denver club that could come from behind to victory. In 1969, the Broncos improved in almost every phase of the game, statistically and otherwise. But more importantly, they improved a factor that is beyond these things, mental toughness that will reflect itself in 1970. Statistics are fine, but you can be sure the Broncos are getting ready to prove themselves beyond these things. For ticket information, call 433-7466 or visit the main ticket office at Denver Mile High Stadium. The season's highlights of the Denver Broncos have been brought to you by United, the airline the pros fly. Fly the friendly skies of United.